So welcome back, guys, to another video, and today I want to do a video talking about my favorite launch titles. I feel like launch titles are super important because it's pretty much like your first impressions of a brand new console. I feel like if a console doesn't have a good launch lineup, then it doesn't push anyone to go out there and say, hey, I need to buy this new console because I need to go play this game. So I have a little list right here. A little list that I'm going to be going through, and mind you, these are all my choices. There's no definitive choice of the best lineup for launch titles, and I really try to do not a top 10 because I think all these games are freaking fantastic. So the first game I want to talk about is Soulcalibur on the Sega Dreamcast, and I have a very interesting story about Soulcalibur, my introduction to Soulcalibur. I mean, I had previously played Soul Edge on the PlayStation, absolutely loved that game, but the way I was introduced to Dreamcast, I was actually just getting back from a funeral. One of my friends had unexpectedly passed away. I went to his funeral, and for a 14-year-old, it was pretty heavy stuff. So my mom was like, I want to take him to the mall, let him look at some video games, something to kind of get me out of that funk. And I remember I went to Babbage's, and lo and behold was the Sega Dreamcast kiosk and Soulcalibur. And one of the things that really struck a chord with me with Soulcalibur was the fact that this game looked better than the arcades. And that was the thing back then. You kind of took games for what it's worth of how well of a port it was from its arcade counterpart, and you try to get something as arcade perfect as you could on a home console. That was the experience. That was before 4K and the frame rates and all that stuff that people look at today. It was all about the arcade perfect ports, and actually Soulcalibur is better than the arcade. And I feel like if you own a Sega Dreamcast, even if you don't like fighting games and you don't have Soulcalibur in your collection, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. And the next game I want to talk about is one of my personal favorites from the Nintendo GameCube, and that, of course, is Luigi's Mansion. I've always been a huge fan of Luigi, being the younger brother, and I always felt like I kind of connected with Luigi more than I did Mario. And this game was actually a lot of fun. This game was something very different, too, because, every Nintendo game that came out, or in every Nintendo console, it was always a new Mario game. And this time, it was a new Luigi game. Probably one of the only Luigi games, if you don't count those horrible education games like Mario's Missing and whatnot. So this was something very different, and it played very different. It wasn't your stereotypical platformer. You were playing this Luigi in this mansion with a vacuum cleaner. It was like Ghostbusters, taking down all these different ghosts, and it had some puzzle elements too, because you had to do certain things to get certain ghosts to come out. It was a lot of fun. It was the only thing that I can complain about with the original Luigi's Mansion is how short it was. This was a very short game, but man, was it a fun game. And this theme song right here, that right there, Daytona USA on the Sega Saturn. Now, the Sega Saturn had a lot of great racing games, and, Daytona by far isn't the best racing game on the Sega Saturn, but it's definitely got the most characteristics. It's got the most charisma of a Sega Saturn racing game, and, I don't know what it is. It's such a good game, and it was a fantastic way to get introduced to the Sega Saturn with this catchy theme song and, fast graphics. I mean, granted, they weren't as many tracks as I would like. I think there was only about 3 tracks. But, I mean, wow. I mean, even to this day, if I go to an arcade and I see Daytona USA, I have to put a couple of quarters in. And every once in a while, I do fire up the Sega Saturn and I play some Daytona USA. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Now, see, I'm not a huge first-person shooter fan. I mean, I like first-person shooters, but I'm not big into them. But one first-person shooter definitely needs a mention. It was a launch title for the Xbox, the Microsoft Xbox, the OG Xbox, and that is Halo Combat Evolved. Now, I remember playing this game at GameStop on the kiosk. I remember me and my friends would play it so much that sometimes the manager would come up to us and be like, "Hey, you guys have been playing this game for way too long. You need to go somewhere else." So we would go to like the arcade and play like Samurai Showdown, and 30 minutes later, we'd go back and want to play some more Halo. Halo was just such a good game. The story itself and the lore, to me, it combats, some of the best sci-fi movies ever created, like Star Wars and Star Trek. It's got that lore. That's the thing. Like Halo, you can go and buy the books and read about the various events that happened during the flood, and oh my gosh, it is still such a great game, and I cannot recommend it enough. If you have an Xbox One, definitely check out the Master Chief Collection, play the original Halo, or one of my all-time favorite remakes is the Halo Anniversary that was on the Xbox 360, because you could actually switch it from the old style to the new style, the newer graphics, and it's such a good conversion. It's such a good first-person shooter. I cannot recommend it enough. And I feel like if I was to make a video about launch titles and I didn't mention this game, I feel like I would just get flooded by the comments. People would be like, "Hey, Xander, why aren't you mentioning this game? We know you like this game so much." Of course, that is Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. The epitome of a great Mario game. This is by far one of the best Mario games ever made. I mean, you get those debates between Mario 3 and Super Mario World. I am a total Super Mario World fan. I can play this game all the time. Matter of fact, I at least once a year play this game in its entirety. I went and go through every single stage, find every single secret. I remember when the Nintendo Switch launched the Super Nintendo games, you best believe I was playing Super Mario World. I can play Super Mario World on my phone. I can play it on my tablet. I can play it on my Raspberry Pi and play it on my PC. I love Super Mario World. And it was by far one of the best introductions to by far one of the best Nintendo consoles of all time, the Super Nintendo. Now, you remember earlier when I was talking about how, games and how they were compared to its arcade counterpart. The Sega Genesis, that was their bread and butter. When the Sega Genesis was first announced and first debuted for the audiences, it was like we brought the arcade home. And one of the launch titles from the Sega Genesis, one of my all-time favorites, Altered Beast. I mean, Altered Beast, from the very beginning of that Elmer Fudd saying, "Wise from your grave." Oh my God, you knew you were in for it. And then when you would transform into a beast and you would just rain havoc on all these zombies. I mean, yes, the game hasn't aged too well. There are much better Sega Genesis games out there, but Altered Beast just has a certain charm to it that even to this day, I still play it. I still boot it up on my Genesis collection on my Nintendo Switch and find myself playing it. And honestly, I've played it more on the Sega Genesis than I have the arcade. But I've played the arcade version, and to be honest, the Sega Genesis version's pretty close. It's pretty close, and it's a fantastic game. And man, I kind of want to play Altered Beast right now. I kind of want to stop filming and play that game. Now, there was a time when Nintendo would almost reinvent the wheel. I mean, that is always a debate if Nintendo is still an innovative company. I think they are. But one game that was a part of their launch, the N64, revolutionized the way we look at 3D platformers. And of course, I'm talking about Super Mario 64. Now, I'll admit, I'm not a huge fan of Mario 64, but for what it is a fantastic game. It is something to marvel at, and it's something that I had never imagined Mario would look like. I remember playing the N64 at a Walmart kiosk and being blown away, believe it or not, that Mario could punch. I don't feel like people talk about that enough, that Mario could actually punch Goombas and Koopas and all these creatures. He could actually just punch them in the face right there. That was like, I love the fact that I could wall jump. I like the fact that I can backflip, but I like it even more that I can punch people in the face. I don't have enough people talk about that. Enough people, kind of appreciate Mario's new acts of violence other than stomping on the heads of his foes. But Mario 64 was really something special. The soundtrack is still iconic, and even now to this day, people are enjoying Mario 64, whether it's speed runs or just going back down nostalgia, or just playing it again for the first time with the Mario 30th anniversary. That after the time of filming this, that game is no longer being sold. But if you were lucky enough to get the anniversary, I'm hoping you're enjoying it because Mario 64 was pretty freaking awesome. Okay, I gotta talk about another Nintendo launch. Okay, the Nintendo Wii. Need I say more? You know where I'm going with this. Wii Sports. Wii Sports was just that game that just blew everyone away. That was that game that, you know, I didn't think it would be as fun as it was, but it was. I remember my brother-in-law at the time, he had gotten the Nintendo Wii, and we all went to his house, and I remember even his mom, who never played video games, was playing Wii Sports. And, I mean, that right there shows you what Nintendo was trying to do with the Wii, and I think that's something that a lot of people today kind of frown on, but it was so embracive. It was so like, hey, let's have fun and play some video games. Let's play Wii Sports. Let's go bowling. Let's, you know, box. The boxing was so much fun. I remember I played that, and the next day my arms were just so sore from just frailing my arms at an invisible person just to punch him in the face. Kind of like Mario 64. But, yeah, I enjoyed that, and, I mean, to this day, I mean, I think if they were to re-release Wii Sports on the Nintendo Switch, I would probably buy it day one. I definitely would buy it day one, to be honest, because it's such a good game even to this day. And the last game I want to talk about is on the Game Boy Advance, and I have to admit it's not my favorite in the series, and that is Castlevania Circle of the Moon. That was a launch title on the Game Boy Advance, a launch Castlevania game, a handheld Castlevania game, a Metroidvania Castlevania game. I mean, at this time, the only thing we really had was Symphony of the Night, which was, you know, iconic. It's great. It's awesome. But to play this on the go was just absolutely amazing. Now, the story is a little different because it doesn't really follow the Belmont lore too much. It doesn't follow, you know, Alucard. It's this new guy named Nathan Graves, and it was almost like a spin-off. I would say this was a spin-off because it's not officially canon in the Koji Igarashi timeline. But something that was very different about Circle of the Moon was its use of trading cards. You had these cards that you get different abilities, and someone like myself who's not a big card player, I don't play Magic the Gathering, don't hate it, I just never really got into it. I actually really like the card system to Castlevania Circle of the Moon. I love the music. I still think the game holds up to this day. I mean, of course, Aria of Sorrow, Harmony and Dissonance are better Castlevania games on the Game Boy Advance, but if all you got is Circle of the Moon on the Game Boy Advance, you're doing just fine. You're doing great. That's such a fantastic game. If you haven't played it yet, you need to go play it right now. Just shut this video off. Go get Circle of the Moon. I'll wait. But anyway, guys, those are some of my favorite launch titles. And what are some of your favorite launch titles from various consoles? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, but also hit that bell so you're notified on all future videos that come out on this channel. Anyway, guys, as always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and as always, happy gaming.